Okay, let's move it on because we need to talk Tottenham. There are so many stories around Antonio Conte and his squad at the moment, it seems. And David, you've written most of them on The Athletic this week, haven't you?
Yeah, there's been a few on Tottenham in these last few days, although possibly the most interesting one didn't come from me. And I think it's still a bit of a work in progress. That's Yves Bissouma. Reports broke on Monday morning time of Brighton accepting or reaching an agreement with Tottenham for around £25 million plus add-ons. Some other reports suggested £30 million for the transfer of the 25-year-old who only has a year left on his contract. And there has been a clear anticipation that he will be moving this summer so that Brighton don't lose him as a free agent. However, this deal is not done yet. I think they still need to agree personal terms. There's talk of a medical later this week. So I'd just be a bit cautious on this one until it's done and dusted, because there will be other clubs interested in Yves Bissouma. And just because Brighton have agreed a deal with Tottenham, that doesn't mean it is complete yet. I don't have personal in-depth knowledge on that one. So I'll direct you over to one in which I do, because I did report that the preference of Jed Spence, the Middlesbrough right back, who was on loan at Nottingham Forest last season, is to sign permanently for Tottenham Hotspur. And that's good news for a lot of Tottenham fans. It's not done equally. They need to agree a fee, Middlesbrough and Tottenham. They are talking. The negotiations are ongoing. There is no agreement as things stand, and there are lots of clubs interested in him. However, the preference of this 21-year-old England under-21 international is to join Tottenham. The lure of Champions League football under Antonio Conte, I think, is pretty persuasive in his mind. And they've already signed Ivan Perisic, Fraser Forster. They may get Bissouma in. And if they add Jed Spence as well, it would be a spectacular start to the transfer window. We're not saying this is going to happen quickly. It might drag on, but I do think that is his most likely destination, because it's where he would prefer to go. And then I also did a story that was slightly unconnected to players, but equally a transfer of sorts, in that Tottenham are set to appoint as their new performance director, Greta Steinson, who had previously been at Everton, before that Fleetwood Town. He was a former Bolton Wanderers and Iceland fullback. And he's going to be going in a wide-ranging role that's going to be essentially number two to the managing director of football, Fabio Paratici, at Tottenham. And I also mentioned in that report that a guy called Simon Davies, who was an assistant to Vincent Kompany at Anderlecht, he also worked in various positions within the Manchester City Academy prior to moving to Belgium. He was head of City's academy for a period. He's a well-respected coach. He is set to go into Tottenham Hotspur also as the head of methodology. And that will be working with the academy head at Tottenham, Dean Rastrick, Chris Powell, who's the head of coaching for the academy too. So a number of steps forward and appointments for Tottenham off the pitch. And they'll also be hoping to make more strides on it as well. So what a busy summer this is at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium.
Jack, I'll ask you in a minute about how excited Tottenham fans should be about all of this. But first of all, any idea what a head of methodology is?
No. I don't know. I don't honestly know. I don't know what a head of methodology is.
David?
Have a guess. Style of play, identity, DNA, behaviours, cultures, experiences that Simon Davies has brought from his varied career as a player and coach.
Okay, fair enough. That's modern football for you, isn't it? That's a new term for our lexicon, I think. How excited then, Jack, should Tottenham fans be about all of this? Because if having Antonio Conte guiding Spurs finally into the Champions League at the end of last season wasn't enough, all this news is only going to whet the appetite for the new campaign, isn't it?
Yeah, I think we are seeing a very, we're seeing a aggressive, ambitious Tottenham approach in the transfer market this summer. Which is really, not something we've seen an awful lot from them over the years. But I do think there's an acceptance at the club that they can't let this moment of opportunity slip. Daniel Levy's been accused quite a few times in the past of getting the team into a good position and not really having the ambition, which is to say the money, to really push on and try and make the most of it. Whereas this summer it looks to be different. They've got Conte to stay. They've got this £150 million cash injection. They've finally got the kind of full revenues flowing into the new stadium, which of course they weren't able to do for 18 months because of COVID. So I do think, clearly they are willing to throw their weight around. You're seeing that the fact that they're not just going for players of resale value, they're going for big experienced stars like Perisic. They go Jed Spence, an exciting player, and then to be honest, I think they're looking for more and more exciting players further up the pitch. Like Adam Kraft and James McNicholas did a story saying that Tottenham are competing with Arsenal for Raphinha. Now, Raphinha is obviously a tremendously exciting player. He's been one of the best players in the Premier League at Leeds United. But Raphinha, I don't think would necessarily be a first choice player at Tottenham, would he? Like I think he'd probably be a squad player competing with Kulusevski, maybe competing with Son, maybe playing at wing back, maybe kind of dropping in different positions. And if Tottenham are in the mix to pay big money for someone who's not even starting, then that's really kind of big club behavior. So in that sense, it does already feel like a different window from the windows we've seen from Tottenham in the past, certainly for the last few years.
Yeah, it's the transition into a squad that doesn't have necessarily a first choice team. It's a collection of players who can play in any given week to suit the opponents, I guess. Richarlison, David, is another name that you wrote about earlier on in the week. And what are the chances of him making the move down to London? Because he seems like another player who may not be necessarily an automatic first choice player for Spurs if he was to make that move.
Yeah, that's right, Ian. Let's explain the whole chronology on this one. There were some reports that emanated from Brazil that Tottenham were in advanced negotiations to sign Richarlison for around 60 million euros. Reports which we then checked out and established that, yes, there is some interest from Tottenham, but no, they're not in negotiations with Everton yet. That may follow, of course. At this point in time, Everton are setting an extremely high asking price for Richarlison, even though he's only got 2 years to go on his contract. Although you might say that's the peak time at which you should sell. And with Calvert-Lewin, the other striker who's been linked with a move away from Everton, having 3 years on his contract, perhaps Richarlison is the one they'd prefer to sell. But Tottenham won't come to the level of finance that Everton would be looking for at this point. But there are a number of people around the game who think that with Everton's financial position, they may, as the window goes on, get squeezed into accepting a lower figure for him. And that's when Tottenham might feel that they can pounce. And when you speak to certain sources around Everton, they think this move will end up happening by the end of the transfer window. So you've got Jack mentioning there the credible interest in Raphinha, but there is also interest in Richarlison. And that backs up the point we mentioned in the piece that Tottenham do have a number of options for this position. They're weighing them up. They're seeing which is best value for money, seeing which is most doable. They're clearly not looking for this central striker, but somebody that can play off wide. They were linked to with Gabriel Jesus from Manchester City, but I don't think that's one they're going to be pursuing, with some others, in particular Arsenal and Chelsea, seemingly the most keen on him at this point. There's been reports of Real Madrid as well. I don't know about the credibility of those or how realistic they are to come to fruition. And so, yeah, Tottenham and Richarlison is certainly one to watch in the weeks ahead.
Yeah, if you want to know more about any of these stories, of course, go to the app, have a look on The Athletic. Lots of interesting detail on their live transfer blogs going on right now as well. So check that out. Jack, in terms of all this for Tottenham, does this mean that we can expect them to challenge Manchester City and Liverpool? Are they the best place maybe of the chasing pack to do that next season?
Yeah, I do think they're best place to chasing pack. I think that, to be honest, I think over the last few months of the season, they were better than Chelsea. Even obviously Chelsea finished ahead of them. Chelsea were much better the first half of the season. So I think Tottenham are the third best team in the country. I think that they will, they'll clearly improve more next year. It's Conte's first full season. He's going to have his first pre-season with the players this summer. Some of the guys who I thought were really good last year, Kulusevski, Romero, Bentancur, it'll be their second season in English football. They'll be more settled. And of course, they've still got Kane and Son. So I think Tottenham is set up to do well. Can they win the league? I think no, it's going to be really hard, just because the level of City and Liverpool is so good. City and Liverpool both got in the 90s again last season, just like they did in 2018-19. I don't think Tottenham are a 90-point team yet. I just don't think they've not really got the depth or the kind of know-how to do that. But I think it's plausible Tottenham could get into the 80s of points, which of course they did the last time under Mauricio Pochettino. And maybe if one out of City or Liverpool would have an off season, then maybe I could see Tottenham coming second under those circumstances. I think it's unlikely that both City and Liverpool have an off year, but one of them could have an off year. Like it happens to big teams, they just have a bad season out of nowhere. Happened to City a few years ago, happened to Liverpool a few years ago. The World Cup is also an extra complicating factor. So maybe I can see that, but I would probably bet against Spurs winning the title at this point.